Joining me now is Danielle DiMartino Booth. She is the CEO and Chief Strategist at QI Research. Great to see you.
Thank you for having me this afternoon.
Yeah, very nice to meet you. For those who don't know, Danielle worked for 9 years at the Dallas Fed. You're an author. You've got your own firm now. You're often on CNBC, Fox Business, other platforms, Bloomberg. But where I first saw you, and I just told you this, was on Hedge TV with Keith McCullough, and you have great conversations on there. So I encourage people to go watch those. So among the things you've been talking about lately is that we see a lot of weak economic data in the United States, such as, and you said that conditions are kind of similar to 2008. Multiple months, 12 in a row, I believe, of revisions to the employment numbers. You've got the Empire State, New York manufacturing number fell off a cliff recently. You've got delinquencies on credit cards, for example. Those are just three things. And yet, just this past Friday, record high S&P 500, Dow Industrial. So how do you square that?
Well, it's interesting because we were crawling through, we publish 8 times a week, but we always look for what's in the weeds. And what was in the weeds of the big jump in the University of Michigan's Consumer Sentiment Report, which was kind of, upheld markets to that all-time high on Friday, was a huge spike in expectations for credit easing among households. They're like, this is awesome. So it's as if households have gotten on the train with the rest of Wall Street, thinking that a pivot by Jay Powell in mid-December is going to equate to the zero bound tomorrow and bringing back quantitative easing, which is ludicrous.
And you say it's ironic that Wall Street is cheering on as many as 3, 4, 5, 6 cuts from the Fed. And historically, as you point out, usually when the Fed is cutting, it means the economy is not in great shape.
Right.
You know?
We October was kind of when we passed the Rubicon with 50 states having rising unemployment rates. And that the tally that the Bureau of Labor Statistics keeps includes the District of Columbia, D.C. So Texas was the only holdout. But 9 out of 9 times in history back to 1980, we have seen the economy in recession the next month, meaning that it would be dated October. But what we've also seen historically is the stock market has roared after you kind of cross this threshold of economic data getting bad enough for the Fed to lower rates. Initially, there's this yes, party. And then the reality sets in of, wait. They're lowering rates because we're in recession. And you have seen a massive decline in earnings expectations for the current earnings season compared to where they were in December when they were positive, and now they're deeply negative. So it looks like we barely escaped an earnings recession for 1 quarter, and now we're right back in the soup.
No, that's very interesting historical context. Now, Danielle, within the last year, maybe more than once, I know you said to Keith McCullough at Hedge, you famously said that Jay Powell has grown a pair, meaning he's going to be resolute with interest rates. He's going to hold the line. He's not going to pander to Wall Street. But then at the last meeting, markets took off, stocks took off, bonds took off. He was perceived as dovish. Do you agree with that? He's now pandering to Wall Street a bit?
I don't think he's pandering to Wall Street as much as I think he wanted to get out in front of the Iowa caucuses. I think he wants to truly be a nonpartisan Fed chair, unlike his 3 predecessors. You have to go back to Paul Volcker to find somebody who really didn't care what was happening inside the Beltway. But I think he wanted to get out in front of the Iowa caucuses. He doesn't like either presumed presidential nominee, either of them, for different reasons. And I think that he's going to surprise investors one more time with how, as his chief lieutenant Christopher Waller said a few days ago, how careful and measured he is in straight down as opposed to just slashing and burning them.
Okay, and so does that imply that maybe not a cut in March? Maybe he wants to push that out to say May?
We'll see. When when the Fed went into blackout, I had him this January the 31st FOMC meeting, the chances of a March rate cut were just under 50%. Historically, you have to see that probability climb over 75%. So how he comports himself at the podium this coming up Fed Wednesday on the 31st, that's going to say a lot about where those expectations, if they go down or if they go actually end up going towards that 75%, bogey that you have to hit before the Fed's ever done anything, whether it's a cut or a hike.
Right. And lastly, Danielle, there's a term out there, mother of all bubbles. Keith McCullough coined it. Not to go on about Keith, but we love watching Hedgeye and seeing you on there. So basically, we had the everything bubble that peaked in November of 2001. Here we are back at record highs in the S&P 500. So these animal spirits, successes, whatever you want to call it, have they just not been fully wrung out of this cycle, and they still need to be?
No. And I think a better prism to look through, rather than just the equity market being at all-time highs, which is, it's an easy enough thing to identify with, but it's the fact that credit spreads are as low as they were back in mid-2007. So not only are equity valuations still at nosebleed levels, but your credit's just as expensive as it was. So I look at this as being, to Keith's point about everything bubbles, I look at this as seeing equities and credit as overvalued as they were in 2001 and 2007. Those are two separate cycles.
Yeah,
We wouldn't want them to get married, would we?
No, and we know what was happening back then and what happened after that. So great insight, great to meet you, and we hope to do it again.
Thank you.
Okay, good stuff. Danielle DiMartino Booth of QI Research.